Thank you for wandering into the Last Video Store, a place for cinema, discovery, recommendations, movies, film, and of course the nostalgia for the video store. My name is Alexei Toliopoulos, and I'm the clerk here sitting at the counter of the Last Video Store, where we talk to cool, exciting, interesting people about their favorite films in the style of an old school video store rental combo. And our guest in on the show today is genuinely not even a dream guest, because I couldn't have dreamt that they would do this show. I'm so excited to have Julio Torres, the director of PROBLEMISTA, creator of Fantasmas, LOS ESPOOKYS, one of the great writers of sketch comedy in SNL, Saturday Night Live's history. Truly someone that I look up to a lot, but also now, having done my podcast, will consider him a colleague and a peer. Producer Dave, how sick was it to get Julio Torres on the podcast today?
That was pretty bloody cool. I mean, to be honest, I thought I was your dream guest, but I can understand why I'm second place to Julio Torres.
Well, you're not a dream, you're a reality. And what is more powerful than being confronted by reality every day when I'm here at work in the podcast?
Nothing scarier than reality.
Nothing scarier. But Julio Torres, truly, I just have been such a fan of his work forever. I loved PROBLEMISTA. It was my number one pick at the Sydney Film Festival last year. And I've seen the movie a few times now. I love it more every time. Very excited to have him on. And he is brought to us here. Very thankful to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival for bringing Julio Torres to the Last Video Store, and for also bringing him out to the Comedy Festival. He's got shows from the 15th to the 20th of April at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I've booked tickets. And I get free tickets because I'm a participant of the Comedy Festival, but I booked in case it's sold out. So I would check out his show, Color Theories. The links to it are in the show notes. And I'll also give an extra shout out to a screening of PROBLEMISTA that I am hosting with Julio Torres, with a Q&A following it at Acme during the Melbourne International Comedy Festival on the 13th of April. It is potentially sold out by the time you're hearing this, but who knows? Keep your eyes peeled. There might be some extra tickets being sold. It's such a great film. We're going to talk about it on this podcast today, and we're going to talk about some of his other favorite films. Also, if you are at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, come see my show with Zach Ruane, Refused Classification, where we play Margaret and David in their battles against censorship. It's been so much fun touring the show already. I'm so excited to kick it off in Melbourne this week. Tonight is the first night of the show, Refused Classification in Melbourne, so buy tickets. It's selling really well, but get in while you can.
And come see it in Sydney as well. And not only will you get to see Alexei and Zach, but you might see me there as well. Which
yes.
I know that's a big draw card.
Oh, what night are you going?
The 3rd of May, I think.
Oh, come to the 3rd of May show. It actually
May.
might be sold out by now.
Ooh.
But everything is moving fast with this show. We're doing Brisbane. Some tickets still available to one of the Brisbane shows. Perth, some tickets still available. So check out Refused Classification. All the links to everything that I've just mentioned is in the show notes. But come and see heaps of great stuff at the Comedy Festival. There's so many great shows. So many people you've loved on this podcast are doing that. So hit it up in the show notes. But also for you, dear listener and viewer of this show, if you want to be like Julio and get your own bespoke, customized staff pick recommendation based on your pickup combo at the Last Video Store, send us in on Apple Podcasts a review, 5 stars, Spotify comment, YouTube comment, on the Instagram, Last Video Store Batuta, and I'll give you a recommendation. We've got one coming in right now from Apple Podcasts.
That is correct. 5-star review, the bare minimum, I would say. This is from Hyoid Bone. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
I don't know, but we've given it a shot.
Yep, given it a good shot. Hyoid says, the podcast about movies that you should be listening to. Alexei knows so much about movies, it's extraordinary. Can confirm. He meets each guest where they want to talk about film and creates really interesting chats. The format of the Last Video Store combo is great too. I would pick. So here are their picks.
I'm listening to the picks.
Overnight, Furiosa.
One of my favorite movies, of course,
Weekly's Last Stand from 2013.
This is an Arnie movie. I think it was either his first coming back from after being governor or his last one before becoming governor, something like that.
Wow.
But directed by Kim Ji-woon, Korean filmmaker.
Very cool. And the other weekly, one of my favorite classics as well, Men in Black.
One of the best
Always a
blockbuster
fun
movies ever.
watch. Always fun.
I'm actually going to give you, and this is a great episode for it because it comes up within minutes of this podcast starting, by Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters, his 2001 film Evolution that stars David Duchovny. It's like a comedy sci-fi in the same ballpark as Men in Black
Yeah.
and Ghostbusters and stuff. But Julio brings it up very quickly in our podcast. So it's a good little 1-2 recommendation.
Yeah.
But it's also a really fun movie. I haven't seen it for like 25 years.
Wow.
But I'm assuming it holds up.
Probably. I love David Duchovny and I love the X-Files, so I might have to go watch this as well.
Oh, this is funny X-Files for
Yeah,
you then.
yeah.
We're going to talk about Julio's film Problemista. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix these days. I just love this movie. A beautiful surrealist comedy about migration and taking all these deep and complex ideas and distilling them down to like visual metaphor in the great way the great surrealists do. We'll talk about it with him, but I just want to say, if you haven't seen it, Tilda Swinton has this incredible lead comedy performance. Julio is great in it, and their juxtaposition together is just wonderful. I could not recommend this film highly enough. But let's get into our chat with Julio Torres. Once again, huge thanks to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival for putting this episode together with me, getting Julio on the podcast. Genuinely, it was not even a dream and it came true. It was beyond dream. I don't know what that is. I don't know what's beyond dreams. Well, cinema. It's a cinema come true then. Julio Torres, thank you for joining me inside the Last Video Store.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure to have you amongst the shelves and aisles here, covered in movies. But I really want to kick things off by talking to you about, you grew up in El Salvador. What was the video stores like where you grew up?
I feel like we all have those like movie boxes that we remember so vividly.
Yeah.
But I never saw as a kid. The two for me were Airplane.
Wow, beautiful.
The graphic of the airplane twisted in a knot, I think, is one of the best posters and graphics in movie history. And then Hellraiser, which
oh my gosh, pinheads, one of the most terrifying creatures ever.
Yes. So I was like, okay, I'm staying away from that shelf. That's bad, terrifying. And then a Blockbuster, the American company, obviously everyone knows what Blockbuster is, came and really drove the competitors to the ground. And so then suddenly it was only Blockbuster.
Wow. The story of colonization, Blockbuster coming in and tearing down all the independents across every country. It happened here in Australia as well. It happened everywhere.
Oh, completely, yeah. And then, then during my adolescence, in my late high school years, through friends, I discovered this video rental place called Evolution Video, and the logo was, they borrowed the logo from that film Evolution.
With the smiley face with the three eyes?
Yes.
That's so funny. To pin your whole video store on this one little known movie.
Yes. The beauty of Evolution Video was that they really carried titles that I had never heard of, both new and old. A lot of international, obviously international because we were in El Salvador and there was no movies made there, but a lot of not American titles and a lot of independent titles. And this was, I think, a seminal part in my development as a creative, was that I would go to the video rental, to Evolution Video, and I would rent 4 movies every week. And I had made a rule for myself. One of the movies had to be a title that I had heard of, that I really wanted to see. The other had to be a movie that I had never in my life heard about, but the box seemed interesting. And then another one had to be a movie in black and white. And then the other one had to be a broad Hollywood horrendous movie that I wasn't interested in seeing, but that everybody else had seen.
Something to connect with other people about.
Yes. And I discovered so many. It was such a crash course in what became my influences, I think.
What do you think was it that made you want to explore and like to really make the conscious effort to explore?
You mean to, by explore, you mean watching movies in general, or like watching
To
all
like
kinds of
really
movies?
set out going, I want to see stuff I've never heard of. I want to explore black and white cinema to
Oh,
really.
I think I'm a very curious person, and that like always sort of defined me. And I think that I just wanted to feel like I was getting a very well-rounded experience, I guess. It's almost like I was being a good student in a course that no one created
I think
for
that it's
me.
something I can really relate to because I worked in video stores when I was a teenager. And it was the same thing of just being
Hmm.
like, I've got the whole access to everything. I want to see every kind of film. I want to really like have like a broad sense of references and a broad sense of like a huge exploration of taste. And I think it's harder to do now. But I'm so glad that you also, I mean, also through your work, being able to express that kind of like broad exploration.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that this moment coincides with that really rich period in specifically American independent filmmaking, where a lot of very unique voices emerged, and you saw the careers of a lot of these people take off.
It's kind of like
Like,
that turn of the millennium. Or I always describe it as
yeah,
like millennium mindfuck, where you see these like interesting, surrealistic, independent films
your
from
Charlie
America.
Kaufmans, your Spike Jones, and
A Michel Gondry, if you will.
Michel Gondry, of course, and also just like it was around along the time I discovered like Lars von Trier and Almodovar and Sofia Coppola was like, because it's like Lost in Translation came out at some point during that time too, and I just really became so enamored with these worlds.
Yeah, the little portals to other universes out there. Well, Julio, I'd love to take you
Yeah.
back and get you a combo of your own. We're going to pick out some movies, wander around the shelves, take a look through the
Okay,
aisles.
great.
We're going to model the
It's
entire
beautiful
video
here.
store after Evolution video for your visit today as well. We've got three
Yeah.
eyes looking at you from every angle. And the face is smiling just for you at Evolution video
In the
here
face
today.
is smiling, yes. I don't know that I ever actually saw Evolution, the film.
Well, we'll have to put it in your combo for you and when you leave the
Yeah,
store.
put it in the basket.
We'll put it in the basket. You can finally watch it. David Duchovny is a scream in Evolution. You'll absolutely love it.
What is Evolution about?
It's kind of like
It's sort of like a Ghostbusters kind of,
yes. Yeah, it's
right?
Ghostbusters. I think it's also the same director as Ghostbusters, but it's like
Oh, really?
yeah, I think so. I mean, that's off the top of my head.
It's
I
like
didn't know we
Men
were
in
talking about
Black meets
Evolution.
Ghostbusters.
Yes, Men in Black meets Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of. I haven't seen it for like 25 years, so I'm going off my
Okay.
memories of it. But I think it's weird creatures, science fiction, a little bit of fantasy,
Yeah.
and a heck of a lot of laughs.
And a heck of a lot of laughs in action. Check it out.
I mean, we're going to go through the store. We'll pick out one new release film that may be a film you have had something to do with, and then two all-time favorites from the weekly sections for you. And then I'll give you a
Great.
recommendation, a staff pick, if you will, based on your tastes. So, shall we get into it, babe?
New release.
All right, let's talk about your new film, Problemista. This is a film I was very lucky to see at the Sydney Film Festival in a packed out crowd. Beautiful film. I absolutely love it.
Comedy.
It's a story about an aspiring toy designer who's struggling to bring his unusual ideas to life in New York City. As the time on his work visa runs out, a job assisting an art world outcast becomes his only hope to stay in the country and realize his dream. I think this is like such a beautiful expression of comedy through surrealism. But I think what really hits me most, and especially the way we kind of already started talking about film in general, is that idea of like that millennium mindfuck era. I feel like this is such a progeny of those kind of ideas of, for me, American surrealism, which I describe as kind of taking a complex or dynamic idea and distilling it down to like a visual metaphor that takes like that uses so much imagination to interpret these like much deeper and harder to express feelings. I think this film is such a beautiful example of that. Can you talk to me about that act of distilling something complex and turning it into a visual metaphor?
You know, for some reason, it comes very naturally to me. I think that because in my day-to-day life, that is how I metabolize emotion and feeling is through images. And so I'm really interested in depicting things as they feel rather than as they are. And even when because the film is vaguely autobiographic, and even when I felt the pressure of finding a sponsor for a visa, I really do remember the image of a magical hourglass running out of sand being so imprinted in my mind, and that is what it felt like. And I think that is the result of, being a person of my generation and having grown up with like classic Disney animation that like uses tropes like that, right? And that put in a blender with the independent cinema that I saw when I was becoming an adult. Like Eternal Sunshine and Science of Sleep and all these movies. So it's almost like, how does a person that grew up that as a child saw movies like Beauty and the Beast, and as a angsty teen saw Michel Gondry films, how does that person interpret the problems of adulthood? And I feel like it feels like the organic answer is the movie that I made.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Like, because I think what it does really well is that it is able to not just distill it down to a visual metaphor, but also continue to express like the emotion of those feelings of being, essentially disappearing, the threat of disappearing or the people around you disappearing. And I think, I grew up in a diasporic community as well. And I think there's something about that as you grow older, as that community changes. There's something about being able to express that through something so elegant that I think is quite beautiful. One thing I want to ask you as well about is, I think the thing that really, when the film kind of coalesced for me, is the score. The score, I think, is so unique to this film because it's like this choral, almost cosmic feeling. Can you talk to me about, I guess, finding what this film sounds like and collaborating with your composers?
I thank you so much for bringing that up. The score is one of the things that I'm most proud of with this film. We were already shooting the movie. When my producers and I were talking about the score, which if I am not I'm a very visual person. I would say that music is a deficiency of mine, and yet I had a very clear idea of what I felt the score should sound like, and I kept just saying like dun 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 dun. And two scores really stuck with me. The one was the score of the animated film Millennium Actress.
Oh, yeah, beautiful film. Yeah. Satoshi Kon.
And then Satoshi Kon, yes, and then the other one was the score of another Tilda Swinton movie, I Am Love.
Oh, yeah, the Luca Guadagnino film.
The Luca Guadagnino film.
Yeah.
And so I kept feeling like this has to be the playful, anxious cousin of those films.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, it's like our producers were setting up meetings with composers, and a lot of them like extremely accomplished composers. And it felt like, I will say that like one thing that I really liked about being a first-time director, which you can only be a first-time director once, that I liked surrounding myself with other scrappy people that were really down to experiment. And so I felt like I wasn't quite finding that ethos in composers. And then a friend of mine, well, she became a friend of mine through working on this project. Her name's Neha. She was like, I know this person who's a really great composer, and they say they want to meet with you. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I trust Neha. I have no idea who this person is, but sure. And lo and behold, I met Leah, and I'm never letting go of Leah.
Wow.
Just an absolute genius. And I don't know if it's available in Australia, but Leah and I also collaborated together on this HBO project, Fantasmas. And yeah, I mean, they created a sound that is wholly unique to the movie and so appropriate to the movie. And it is the words that we used at the beginning was propulsive, kinetic, magical, and anxious.
I mean, it really captures this fantastical element to it. I think it's a great it borders almost on juxtaposition of aesthetic and sound. There's just something about it.
Yes.
And for me, it took time to get into it, and then I just go, oh, this makes everything sing. This makes everything work. So it sounds like you found your a lifelong collaborator now.
Well, yes, because I really, really, really wanted to convey that, in our day-to-day lives, and sending an email can feel like slaying a dragon. Right?
I mean, that's so true. Yeah.
Receiving an upsetting text message can feel like a boulder hitting you in the head.
Yeah.
And so just how to bring these magical, fantastical, epic feelings to the most mundane thing, how realizing that you don't have enough money in your bank account is the same to an enemy soldier just slashing your guts, right? And Leah really, really accomplished that.
I mean,
and
truly.
also the choir, because they use there's a choir in the film, and they sing things like "has, bro," "vi, sta," and it's just so ridiculous, and I love it.
Even more comedy comes through the score as well. Yeah, that's so cool. I really want to ask you as well, because we're kind of talking about the aesthetic now. There's this choice in this film that I really love, which is the tech aesthetic. I'm talking about the laptops, the messages, the kind of there's this really dated quality to the aesthetic, almost of that early 2000s time. Can you talk about I guess finding that aesthetic and why your choice was to make it like that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's two things to that. One, I do like showcasing technology in my work because I think that too many creators, and I think we're phasing out of that. I think that storytellers are less worried about this now, but for a long time it felt like we were allergic to showing people and present day technology because it's not very cinematic. And there was this, I feel like when the internet became and when text messaging and the internet became such a presence in our lives, suddenly media was obsessed with setting films in the 90s and the 80s, almost as a way of escaping the reality of smartphones, because that is such an uncinematic thing. And I really wanted to show that even though, yes, sending a text message or Googling something is very boring to see, that it can feel so huge.
You're really able to capture the frustration of technology as well in this, in a very real, almost pathological way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly inept, so I think that's why that is. And in terms of how it feels at the same time a little retro, is because I'm really telling a story based on my life 10 years ago. So I feel it like became an accidental, like kind of like accidental period piece.
That's beautiful. I had to find the authenticity to your own experience there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I want to ask you as well before we move on to your other choices. Since we're talking so much about like design and like the kind of aesthetics of filmmaking, there's something really interesting in like the silhouettes of your characters in this. In particular, your character Alejandro, how he's got this lovely little kind of like cowlick popping out of hair. Can you talk about like,
Yeah.
I guess finding the silhouette or like the shape or the physicality of a character, and I guess even directing yourself in that sense?
I was watching a lot of anime when I was writing this movie, and I loved the way they moved, and I loved how there's something about specifically the kind of anime that I was watching with films like Your Name or Weathering with You, or that were they're so emo, they're so emotional, and they're so yeah, they're just so full of feeling in a way that this movie was, and it and having the character, because Tilda kind of looks like in the film, she kind of looks like a Sailor Moon villain. I don't know, it just felt like there was an elevated slightly departed from reality quality there that I was really interested in. And I, in the first like wardrobe fittings and camera tests, I put on the backpack and I played with the hair, and I was like, oh yeah, I like feeling like a little robot, like a little, like an exploring little robot collecting data, trying to not disrupt things, and that is going to be my thing for this. Like that feels comfortable here. I am the I'm the little marionette, and she is this tornado, this dragon, this disaster.
Yeah.
And so when like my silhouette was very clean and very sleek, but at the same time very like not fitted, not chic. And we played with scales and pleats, and she's almost medieval.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great another juxtaposition there. Those two entities coming up against each other. Julio, I love this movie so much. I'm very excited to be hosting a screening with you in Melbourne later, I think next month. There might still be a few tickets left, so if you're hearing this on the day of release, buy the last few tickets to that screening. But I can't wait to talk to you more about Problemista. But I think we should move on to some of your other favorite films. Shall we move into your weekly choices?
Weekly.
This film, I haven't seen this movie for like 10 years, but I love this film from Abbas Kiarostami. This is Where is the Friend's House?
Art house.
Can you tell me about what made you choose this film? Pick it up from the shelves. What was it that inspired you today?
I love movies about people that are very in their head. Movies about people that have one very specific goal, and seeing their ineptitude at fulfilling that goal. And this movie is about...
this is the perfect movie that describes all of that.
And this movie is about little boy who accidentally kept his friend's notebook and realizes that his friend won't be able to do his homework without his notebook. So he has to find where his friend lives to give it back.
And he's set in Iran, and he lives in another village from him, so he has to go on almost like a hero's journey mixed with a bit of like a procedural investigation as well of this little boy trying to find it. And of course, you know, like you said, the ineptitude. It's a little boy. He doesn't have the skills to discover these things.
And the really... You can see in the little boy's face that this is life or death. But the adults around him, they couldn't care less.
Yeah. It's so well put, because I think what this film does is it just edges those stakes a little bit for you, where you go, the other boy will get in trouble for not doing his homework, and he's already on the edge of not doing his homework. So for kids, that's life or death stakes. And
That's and I love movies where even if the experience feels not relatable or feels like inaccessible, you can really, really, really connect to it and feel what they are feeling. And there's another thing that's really hypnotic and very melancholic about this movie, which is it portrays getting lost, like physically getting lost in a way that I find to be so true. And so, where it's like that limbo between knowing where you are and what you're doing and being in danger, but you are like just wandering around wondering, am I in danger? Is this that is so, it's like that liminal space between looking for something and giving up or wondering if you've gone too far and that you're in trouble. That's really it uses space in a way that I think feels so real. And it's almost like the only thing I can relate it to is maybe like wandering around alone in a country where you don't speak the language. And maybe like your phone has died or something, and you don't know how to get back to where you're supposed to. And it's like those couple of minutes where you're like, wait, am I lost?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit also like when you go to a store and you're looking for like one specific thing, and you go to the aisle where that specific thing is supposed to be, and you can't find it. And you realize that you've been staring at the shelf for a little too long, and that it's time to.
And there's no way you can ask for help at that point. There's no way.
No, and it's time to give up.
You have to give up.
But other
The
movies that
wandering must continue.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, do I give up, or do I show perseverance by looking at every item again?
Surely if I look at this item long enough, it'll transform into the one I'm after.
It'll transform into the toothpaste that I have to buy.
And it's always a pharmacy. It's always a pharmacy where you're inundated. It's always a pharmacy. I think what it does really well, this film, it captures perspective so elegantly of you're seeing the world through this child's eyes, but you also have like this like larger scale idea of like the adult world around him, and the kind of like you said, this liminal space between those two things as well, of the child's world, which is protected somewhat, but now he's seeing like a bigger space, a bigger thing. It's even captured visually by having him appear so small in like bigger landscapes and like wider shots. It's just a film that connects so beautifully to its theme, through its visual aesthetic, through everything that it does. It's just, I mean, Chris Dummy was one of the great masters, and I watched this movie around 10 years ago when he passed away. I was like, I'm going to try and get through some of his great films. And there's still so much more. This is part of a trilogy, and I've only seen this first film.
Other movies that I think fall under this this genre of inept character trying to do one thing is Gregor Araki's Smiley Face.
Oh, beautiful. Yes.
In which a stoned out of her mind Anna Faris is just trying to get to an audition.
Yeah.
The whole movie. But she has smoked so much weed that it is impossible for her to do this one very simple thing. And it's just like, it's just so funny and so heart-wrenching. Also, Bo Burnham's 8th Grade comes to mind.
Oh, absolutely. Another great film with perspective of adult and child like, interlinking. Beautifully put, yeah.
Where she is refreshing the likes on her Instagram and no new likes are coming in. And it's so trivial, but you know that to her it's life or death.
I just saw Janet Planet as well. Oh, I saw it last year at the film festivals.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And I think that captures well this feeling. Like Eighth Grade is the other one that's done it, but then Janet Planet, there's just this feeling of, I've not felt that since I was a kid, but like the pleasure of being bored when you're a child, of just like these little moments where you're just kind of going, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what's going on. Nothing's coming in, also nothing's coming out, but this feeling of stagnation as a child. And I think Where's a Friend's House, Janet Planet, and definitely Eighth Grade all capture that feeling so well. I don't even know how you can express a feeling that's so like nothing, but you can make it feel empathetic that way. I think that all those films do that beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. There is an innocence and a sense of wonder to them.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about Where's the Friend's House before we move on to your next pick?
Again, like the use of, because there is I feel like sometimes as a filmmaker, want to control the environment a little too much and feel like my school of cinema or something is building the world from the ground up. And then I see something like Eighth Grade where it's like, Where's the Friend's House? Where it's like, no, you're using the towns as they are, probably. And just letting an actor roam. And that is, I think, a challenge I want for myself of working with the natural environment as is.
Wow.
Because I think that there's a certain way of doing films, particularly in America, that is just so official that strips the naturalism away. So I'm eager to, I don't know, I keep thinking that I want to do something that's really just in nature. In also like very different movie, very, very different movie than Where's the Friend's House. But in terms of its use of how like the natural, how the setting as is informs the way the characters' journeys. Stranger by the Lake.
Oh my
Comes to
gosh.
mind.
Okay. One of the great art house classics of our times.
Yes. Where I have never seen, as someone who quite frankly has experienced it, but had never seen it in cinema, I've never seen cruising be so well portrayed. And that is because the actors are really working with that forest. They're really acting with it. It's not just that the location scout said like, okay, let's set the cameras here and let's do it here. It's that it's a part of the story. And yeah, no, it just makes me really want to do something in a natural environment.
Beautifully put. Well, let's move on to your final choice, because I think we've been talking a lot about like that millennium era of surrealistic filmmaking as well. I cannot think of a better movie to capture all of that we have not even touched on yet, from the great Jonathan Glazer. This is his film starring Nicole Kidman, 2004's Birth.
Cult.
This is, I remember exactly where I was when I first heard about this movie. I was inside a video store as, I guess I would have been 12 or 13. There was this TV screen playing the trailer on it. I was just like, whoa, that looks so taboo. And I remember my mum getting it out for me and just like, I love this movie. This is Nicole Kidman's best performance, in my opinion.
Adore this movie. I love Nicole Kidman. Anne Heche is spectacular in it as well. It is so, it has this underlying, I really struggle with movies about depression. I don't love feeling depressed.
Oh my gosh. This is a shocking moment. What a revelation.
So something like a movie like, for example, Melancholia is like very difficult for me to watch, but there was something so escapist and eerie and alluring about Birth, and It's actually a very simple movie. It's a very, very simple movie. It feels like it could be a play.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's just so patient and God, yeah, Nicole Kidman is just spectacular in it. And also it has one of my favorite tropes. It was one of my very cinematic tropes, which is female protagonist reckons with her interiority as she's watching an opera.
Oh, okay, delicious, delicious. And who better than the porcelain face of Nicole Kidman to have all those things express, waft on her face like that?
Yes.
I mean, that's what this movie's all about. It's about the deliciousness of that, of those kind of excesses to me.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Like,
Also, it reminds me of like another scene of a great actress confronting herself as she's watching an opera. Margaret.
Oh, yeah, great. I mean, of course, I think as well with this film, I love that you kind of start talking about like it as a depression, because what a great way to confront mourning through something cinematic, because it's about a woman whose husband has died. 10 years on, she's starting to move on with her life. And then this little 10-year-old boy comes up to her and is like, I'm the reincarnation of your husband. And you just go, okay, I'm oozing into the deliciousness of like how bizarre and how strange and how, I mean, dare I say, naughty that premise is. It's just like, it explores in such fun ways.
It's so beautiful. And the colors, the wallpapers, the use of Central Park, it's all that lobby, everyone is so lonely. Everyone is so lonely in that movie.
I would love to see Nicole in a Julio Torres joint. I feel like this is a match made in heaven.
She's truly one of my favorites. Dogville is one of my favorites as well. I just rewatched To Die For. Speaking of delicious.
Absolutely delicious. I just got that Criterion 4K Blu-ray. Can't wait to watch it again myself.
To Die For is gorgeous. Her remake of Stepford Wives, I think, deserves a rewatch.
A reappraisal.
Yes, it deserves a reappraisal for sure. Yeah.
We will be the soldiers in cinema going in for the battle of Stepford Wives to be reappraised.
Yes.
I'll be joining you on those front lines, brother. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Do you have any other final thoughts on Birth before we move on to the staff pick recommendation for you?
Do I have any other thoughts on Birth? No, I think that, I think that a lot of people haven't seen it, but I think that Jonathan Glazer has earned your respect and has earned the right to have you go back and watch Birth.
Absolutely.
Because
you have to.
Because if you can't handle him at his birth, you don't deserve him.
You don't deserve his sexy piece. You don't deserve his zone of interest. You need to see Birth.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Staff pick.
All right, well, let us get into this final portion of the program today, Julio. It is now upon me to bestow upon you a staff pick recommendation based on our conversation, based on your taste, based on every skerrick of information I've ever gathered about you. I've struggled, I've stressed, I've been trying to think of something, but usually when we've got someone in from overseas, I would love to recommend Australian cinema, to share the nation's cinema with you.
It's not Walkabout, right?
It is Walkabout, yes. I was going to choose Walkabout. I was going to choose Muriel's Wedding.
Is it Priscilla?
Yeah, Priscilla. I thought you might like Priscilla. There's some lovely gowns in it. No, I was searching a little bit.
Australia.
It's Australia, because you chose a Nicole Kidman movie. It made sense to pick a Nicole Kidman movie for you. It's camp. It's exciting. No, I was really trying to like dig a little deeper for you, and I wanted to kind of get you something There's two that I've been going to. I'm going to give you one first straight away, and it kind of dawned on me when you mentioned Smiley Face by Greg Araki as well. There's a film, it's almost a filmography that I'm going to unlock for you right now. There's a filmmaker in Australia. Her name is Alice Mayo Mackie, and she is 20 years old now, and she's directed 5 feature films.
Oh my God.
And
okay.
She's a trans filmmaker, and all her films are like these trans, queer, horror, beyond micro budget films. But each one is
Beautiful.
like a pastiche on like a different subgenre of horror, whether it be like slashers, Christmas themed horror. She just made this Christmas horror that Vera Drew, the People's Joker, edited. So she's like, I think like a huge force in Australian genre filmmaking and the future of Australian genre cinema. And a big part of like queer cinema in Australia that I think is hopefully having a renaissance right now. But the movie I want to recommend to you, I think is her 3rd or 4th film. It's called T Blockers from 2023.
Horror.
And this is, I would describe as her take on like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers or a Pod People film. And I'll give you a little synopsis to whet your beak. When an ancient parasite rises from beneath a small town, taking the most fearful and susceptible host, a young trans filmmaker finds herself as the only one who can sense the possessed and rally the resistance before the horror escapes and spreads.
I cannot wait. I already know my friends like I'm going to see this with.
Oh, thank goodness. I reckon you'll really dig it because what she does so well is things that could be seen as like, you know, when you're thinking about films from like horror films like the 80s or something, the stuff is the subtextual material that is boiled all the way up. So it's at the top. So it's all about like, you know, transness. It's all about like that is all at the top. And they're so fun. They kind of, for me at least, they awaken like this inspiration of like how it feels to like that creative collaboration of like feeling like what it's like to make films with your friends. Like there's something really inherent about that there. But these are like so well made. With each film you see her get better at her craft and become such a huge, bold filmmaker. That is T Blockers. I think you'll really have such a good time with it. But all her films are fun. I think there's like 5 or 6 now. She's only 20.
Oh my God.
Just
okay, great.
very much feels like, you know, in the same ancestry of a John Waters or a Greg Araki, but really bold and experimental and having a lot of fun and making these great expressions through genre cinema.
I can't wait to see it.
Enjoy. Hopefully you like it. And the other one I was thinking, it's a film that's come up on this podcast, and I've always wanted to recommend it to people, but it's this movie called Love Serenade, starring Miranda Otto. Have you heard of Love Serenade?
I have not heard of Love Serenade. Let me write that down. T Blockers and Love Serenade.
Cult.
So Love Serenade is by Shirley Barrett, who was a great Australian filmmaker who sadly passed away. This is a 1996 film that's set in this small rural Australian town, and it's about these 2 adult sisters, one played by Miranda Otto and the other one played by Rebecca Firth. And they have like this kind of stunted Arrested Development feeling going on. And then this kind from the big city, this radio jockey moves in next door to them, and it becomes about them trying to win him over. And there's no score. It's all Barry White and kind of like disco and soulful disco tracks coming through. And it's got this great like magical realist, surrealist edge to it that I think is something you don't always see in Australian cinema.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I think from everything we've talked about, I think both of those will really excite you.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Well, enjoy. And hopefully I'll catch you around Melbourne Comedy Festival. You'll let me know if you've caught them. Give me an update if you've seen those films. Otherwise, I might sneak you a Blu-ray or something of them.
I'm sure I can find a...
We'll see how we go. But anyway, Julio, I don't want to keep you all night long. Thank you so much for coming to join me on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been delightful. And
A true delight. I'll see you soon. I'll see you at that screening. If not, I'll see you around Melbourne, dude.
This is the farthest I'll ever travel. No,
Really?
not the farthest I'll ever travel. The farthest I've traveled so far.
So far. Hopefully you make it to Antarctica one day as well. I mean, that's a little bit further.
Yeah, Yes. I would. In theory, I would like to go to Antarctica.
Well, you're so close. You're getting closer by the minute. So
I know.
thanks so much.
Have you ever been? Is that
No,
a place
no.
Australians go to?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, we go there for our spring break and stuff. That's where we go party.
Is
when
that
we
your
finish school.
Cancun?
Yeah, it's like Cancun. We have a version of the movie, The Real Cancun, but it's all about Aussies trying to get laid in Antarctica. Yeah, it's really good. I'm trying to get it made. I'm really trying to get that documentary up. The first reality movie.
Yeah.
The last video store.
Thank you once again to Julio Torres for joining me inside the last video store. What a pleasure it was to hang out and talk film, get sticky about cinema. His pickups are Problemista, his beautiful new surrealist comedy, Where is the Friend's House by Abbas Kiarostami, one of the classics of Iranian cinema, and Birth from Jonathan Glazer. I also recommend T Blockers from Alice Mayo Mackey, who we got to get on the show one day, one of my dearest mates these days, and Love Serenade from Shirley Barrett, two wonderful Australian pieces of cinema. And also check out Julio Torres' show at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. The ticket links are in the show notes. Some tickets still available, but obviously they're moving fast because it's freaking Julio Torres doing Melbourne Comedy Festival. Thank you once again to MICF for getting Julio on the podcast. And check out my show, Refuse Classification, and hit us up on Instagram, Last Video Store Batuta. Share the show amongst your friends. Of course, this is a great episode to share amongst people. I mean, it's freaking Julio. I'm so stoked that he did the show. So thank you all very much. Share the show amongst your friends and share the dream of cinema with everyone that you know.